So, you guys have everything ready?
Yeah, might have it up.
Yep, got it up.
Cool. Someone wanna count it down to start the video?
Yeah, so we will do. Yeah, Phoenix is in here. Good. I'll do 3, 2, 1, go, and then we'll just all start on go.
Cool.
All right. So 3, 2, 1, go. All right, everybody. So this is a TAS of the Vortex category in Spyro 1, and it was created by Zando Toaster, along with Zando. There's me, and Gazco.
Hello.
So we're just going to talk a little bit about this category and have a good time. So this category is a very unique category to the other categories in this game. We actually use an all worlds cheat that allows us to bypass the standard requirements to reach each world in the game. And we basically use that to craft this unique category where we enter each level except for flights and loot. And we go straight to the Vortex, exit level Vortex as soon as we possibly can. It was first created around 2015 by a runner named Forward One. He's not around too much now, but hopefully he's here to watch it, or did he say it to work?
I think he said he had to work, unfortunately.
That's a shame. If you want to compare it to another category in another game, it'd be kind of similar to 14 Tally or 3 any percent in Spyro 3. So yeah, the first level is Stone Hill. It basically gives you a really quick overview of what we're going to be doing in each level. Get in the level, go to the return home Vortex, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, you kind of swerved around that dragon there. Some of the dragons do end up kind of in your way. I know I've had a number of PBs where I ended up accidentally collecting a dragon somewhere and lost like 7 seconds.
Yeah.
We're going into Town Square now. This is going to be the first instance of like an unintended thing you'll see. If you've seen many Spyro 1 runs before, you've probably seen this. We're just going to jump over the wall at the start and go straight over to the Vortex. It's a nice little skip.
Mm-hmm.
Right after this, we're going to go over to Toasty. You're going to see Spyro do a wall glide to get over the wall and out of bounds in Artisans. Wall glides are really straightforward. You just kind of push against a wall and you can maintain or even gain a lot of height depending on how well you do it. But then in Toasty, we're going to do something significantly more interesting. This is going to be the first instance of a proxy we're going to see. Yeah, a proxy is just sort of when Spyro is stuck inside of something, the game will force him out with a lot of momentum like that. That was first seen in a 2-player, 1-controller run from Jumpy Luff and Saboom a long time ago, and to my knowledge, this is the first time anyone has recreated it.
Alright, so up next is Dark Hollow. It's the last Artisans level already. It's pretty much the same as the RTA route. There are a few pretty cool, precise jumps in there that you can't really do RTA.
Yep. Since it's a pretty simple level, you may have noticed if you've seen runs from runners before that there used to be people that would go to Dark Hollow first. It was found that going to Stone Hill and getting Dark Hollow at the end was actually a little faster. So when this task was made, that's kind of the new convention that we use.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, and Hum mentioned earlier that there's a cheat code, and that's gonna be put in right here, really quickly. Normally that's done at the very start of the run, but Zando just straight up forgot, so he just did it at the end of Artisans.
It doesn't lose any time to do it at the end, but yeah.
Also, in this category, you can do the homeworlds in any order you want to. People tend to get the harder stuff out of the way, like Beastmakers, Dreamweavers, but it's very important that you do Magic Crafters right before Peacekeepers, and that's why we're going to Magic Crafters right now. So the reasoning for that is because once you get to the Balloonist, he wants to take you to Beastmakers, but since we don't have any Dragon Eggs to get there, he wants to take us to a level that does have a dragon egg. And there are 5 different places he can take us. So he can take us directly into a dry canyon or a cliff town. So if we can get him to do that, that would save a bunch of loading screens and just save like 30 seconds overall. So, and since that is RNG, people tend to get it out of the way first.
Yeah, you'll see, we put that cheat code in, but for each balloonist, they'll still kind of remind us, like, hey, you need to get those dragons, or you gotta get those gems. But he'll still let us do whatever. They're just kind of disappointed in us. And Tuco, he's kind of really wanting you to at least get 1 egg, so he's like, I'll take you right there.
Exactly.
So we use that.
Yeah. One thing you'll see a lot of in just small movement mechanics is jumping up hills or flaming enemies to get them out of the way. A lot of small things like that really add up. We're going into High Caves next. High Caves actually has an interesting routing thing about it, where you can go left or right at the start. And RTA, I timed it once. If you go left, it's about a second slower than going right, but you miss a platform cycle. But if you could catch that cycle, it would be about a second faster. But in a TAS setting, you can be precise enough to catch that cycle, but also if you go on the right, you can just charge jump up all those steps anyway, and you save so much time that the right path is still about a second faster. That was also the first instance of supercharging, you see. It gets more interesting later. That level's pretty straightforward. You can jump off of the scenery in a lot of places, including right here to go into Wizard Peak. A lot of those jumps are not that hard once you know how to set them up. In Wizard Peak, you're gonna see the first instance of a damage boost. And I'm gonna try to explain that quickly here. Spyro has a momentum value stored with him. And when you bonk on a wall, that value does not get reset until you start moving again. And some attacks will sort of release that momentum and send Spyro forward or upward if he goes into a wall. So you can see that guy hit him, and that made Spyro kind of fly up the wall and go straight into the vortex there.
Yeah, it's super cool. And actually, when we're going into Blowhard here, we're going to see a string of tricks to basically skip right to the vortex, and we start off with another damage boost. It's a little bit different. We're not using supercharge speed. We use our regular charge speed, but that in combination with one of the wizards coming up will boost us up a wall, and we'll be able to do a string of tricks following that. So it's going to be right at the start here. We're going to actually use the damage from that that attack right there, and then we're going to go out of bounds into a certain spot, and we're going to interact with the scenery in an interesting way there to proxy. Basically just shoot us to the side a little bit closer to the island, use a wall glide, and then get to this final island to reach and skip basically the entire level, which is really cool. So coming up here, we're going to go to Tuco, and he's going to, as we mentioned before, offer to take us right to Dry Canyon, which saves a bunch of time. It is RNG dependent, but since this is a task, we can manipulate that. I think Toaster said that he got it like first try in this task.
Yeah, I just kind of optimized running up to Tuco, and he just gave me Dry Canyon first try.
So pretty awesome. Dry Canyon, quick work is made here. We use an amazing wall glide here to just kind of trace along the outside perimeter of this section right here, and it really showcases how we can use it to gain height and get up to that area.
That is ridiculously hard to do RTA, by the way. I tried for hours to do that, and the highest I got was that lower wall one time.
Coming up, we have Clifftown. So this level is pretty straightforward for a while. I want to give shout outs to Jeremy Thompson and Tuval. Jeremy was doing a Vortex playthrough fairly recently, and Tuval was just kind of messing around with stuff. And we're going to see here in a little bit that there was a squeeze proxy found with one of the enemies, and it allows us to skip about half the climb up these stairs. It's really cool. If you mess it up, you can actually get shot out of bounds. You just go right through the scenery. But if you get it right, you get boosted up, do a quick magic stairs, and then you're right up to the finish of the level.
Another thing I want to mention about the sort of small mechanics to worry about is entering vortexes and also entering portals. You want to not charge jump into vortexes, so you start getting that upward momentum sooner. The vortex will start the end of level loading stuff once you reach a certain height in it, so you want to get to that height ASAP.
Right. So, Dr. Shemp, at the start we have a nifty little wall glide coming up right here. It takes us straight to the boss fight, pretty much. That was found by Matt13, I believe, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just out of nowhere. And right here, we can actually skip all 3 phases of the fight. For a while, we knew about the 3rd phase. Somewhat recently, Xando found a 2nd phase skip. And then while Xando was making the TAS, he found a skip for all 3 phases. So it takes some pretty precise wall gliding, but made it possible.
Yeah, skipping that first phase isn't quite RTA viable yet, but maybe in the future.
I really want it to be.
Yeah.
Ice Cavern. The task for this level only saves about a second over what we do RTA. And the RTA route is actually intended. So off the bat, we're gonna take a big jump right here and try to barely get a wall glide off this giant random ice pillar. And it's RTA viable, but most people agree that it's just not worth saving a second.
Yeah, the time difference is so small, it wasn't until I was making this task that I was even sure that that route was faster. So next we're gonna run over and talk to Gosnold to go to Dreamweavers, actually. There isn't a crazy special reason to go to Dreamweavers next like there was for Magic Crafters, it's just that the menuing works out to be about a 1 frame faster, basically.
You might have seen when we were going up Ice Cavern or out of Ice Cavern and going up that hill, he did a couple jump charges instead of just charging or holding square next to kind of skitter up or charge jump up it. So just depending on the elevation of that or whatever, you can. Some things are faster than others.
Yeah. Haunted Towers is one of my favorite levels in the run. We're gonna do several wizard proxies here, and then a really cool supercharge strat. And a surprising amount of this is actually RTA viable. I usually go for these first 2 wizard proxies in runs. This 3rd one barely saves time and is much harder than the others. And then the supercharge strat I basically have down at this point. It's definitely something you can practice and learn. After Haunted Towers, we're going to Death Abuse. You'll notice we're on green sparks right now, and there are a lot of damage abuses that we still need to do in the run. So dying here, in addition to getting us closer to Dark Passage faster, will reset our health and just make the rest of this run a lot more comfortable. Speaking of neat damage abuses, this level has maybe my favorite one. There still is another route that people usually go for. I think I'm the only person that goes for this damage boost in runs. But it's by far the most precise one I've found. Yeah, you can just get up to the end of the level right there. You'll also see this Vortex pulls you so high in the air, so getting maximum upward momentum going into that is really important there.
Yeah. We'll see a little bit later a good example of like getting into that vortex as high as possible, because it just speeds up getting to the level that we need to. Actually, Lofty is kind of like that.
Yeah, Lofty is a little bit like this. Lofty has a lot of options that we looked into that I was really sad did not amount to anything. There's a big jump you can do that didn't work out. You can ride one of the balloon guys over to the end area, but you have to wait for a cycle on him, and it just didn't turn out to be faster. But there's still a really nice RTA route here where you jump on this wall to get to the end area sooner. And then there's a cool trick we're going to do here, more damage abuse. We're going to actually use these turkeys to ride up to the vortex. Normally, if you try to use one turkey, it will kind of hit a height cap and then stop going up higher. But if I use 2 together like that, they can push each other past the height cap and then just keep going.
And make sure to note, we had full sparks right before we went in that level, and now we're back at 0 again because of all those that damage that we just took.
Yeah, you take damage so many times in this run. Next up is Jacques. This is another level that had a ton of potential that didn't really amount to much. There were a bunch of fool proxies I looked at. There was a wall glide from the start of the level to the boss arena that didn't quite amount to anything. There's a cool little wall glide here to skip one of the elevators, and then you can take these stairs instead of the second elevator. That's a bit faster too. But the big things that we did end up using are, we found out a while ago that you can actually get a proxy off of Jacques, and also his boxes can damage boost you. And so we're gonna use those together. Neither one of those on their own will get you enough height to the Vortex, but doing that route saves about 5 seconds over fighting the boss normally.
And not only that, but you probably missed it if you blinked at all, but there was a tiny wall glide after that damage boost that is required to be able to reach that Vortex. So we're going to be going into Beastmakers now. As you probably saw, we are sparksless again, so we're going to grab some fodder on the way to Terrace Village. We have to have blue sparks going into Misty Bog, so you'll see us grab a couple in there. And then we'll be going into Terrace Village.
Terrace Village is a pretty nice level. A lot of people I've heard it's not a favorite of theirs, but I really like it. I think the movement is really clean once you really get the hang of it with where you're going. It's also got some nice magic stairs in the TAS setting.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. Yeah, so we'll see. We're getting about halfway through the level to where the Vortex is, and usually RTA we're gonna basically climb through where the cycles are, but in the TAS there's a wall glide we can use right here, which isn't RTA viable, and then we get up this platform where we do a really hard jump to get up to the final Vortex of that level. Final, it's the only Vortex. That jump is RTA viable, but it is very tough.
Mm-hmm.
So next we're going to be going to Misty Bog. So we needed to have blue sparks going into Misty Bog because we're actually going to go to the Vortex right from the start because it wraps around basically. And we need to damage ourselves twice to get all the way over to where the area is. So you'll see that right at the start. But a little more interesting that you'll see right after that is we're going to be doing some cool tricks right along the edge of the water there. It was something really interesting that Toaster found maybe a month or so ago, where if you're charging it possibly or jumping away from the water and you're right at the edge of it, you have a little bit of time where you can jump off of it without taking damage. So we see it used there, but we'll see it used actually in Metalhead as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, next up is Treetops. Right off the bat right here, we're going to do a very precise jump that Alex Dest found. You want to kind of get the wall and the torch to like kind of push you up so you can like barely get enough distance to make that jump. Off that supercharge ramp, you might have noticed that we left the ramp like to the left as soon as possible. That way we can get a lot more forward momentum rather than upwards momentum. Saves a decent bit of time right there.
And I just want to give a quick shout out to Deo Man, who pointed out to me during a stream once that you don't actually have to let go of the square button going from Treetops to Metalhead. You can just charge all the way there, and it's awesome, and it is very, very slightly faster.
Right. All right, Metalhead. Zando put a lot of time into trying to find some kind of proxy to help us out, but couldn't really find much. He found a lot of out of bounds, but just couldn't get to the Vortex. So we had to stick to the RTA route. It's this nifty little wall glide that takes us out of bounds. I believe Saboom found this out of bounds, but Jumpy Luff is the person that made it useful for this category. So I just kind of sneaked behind this door, some more water hopping, and straight to the Vortex.
Yeah, normally RTA, you're not going to be able to do the water hopping, so we need gold sparks going into there. But with the water hopping, that doesn't matter at all.
Right.
I was hoping you'd be able to use water hopping to jump straight into the Vortex room, but it's just barely too far away from the water.
Yeah, that would be super nice. All right, and just like that, we are off to the last homeworld, Nasty's World. This is where we rescue our one and only dragon. Otherwise, we can't get into the dragon heads right there behind him. And Nort Cove, we're gonna do a strat that's using any percent. Nothing really new right here.
Yep. The only real thing to maybe note is Toaster was testing out doing stuff with the metal barrels here, like we do with T and Teamwork. But they have different properties, so he wasn't able to get anything that was super useful for this task.
Yeah, for some reason the TNT barrels just throw you much higher than the metal ones.
Mm-hmm.
So next up we're going to be going to Twilight Harbor. There's not a ton to talk about at the start of this level. It's mostly just going to be some, sharp turns, clean movement, that kind of thing. You can notice again that there's going to be a lot of flaming enemies to push them slightly out of the way. There is a proxy at the start of this level, but I looked into it and it's just not fast enough to be worth going for in Vortex. But next up here, we're going to do a supercharge that a lot of people, I assume, have not seen. You can actually get a supercharge off of that bridge. I think that was found like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
There are a couple of hidden supercharge ramps in the game like that you can get supercharge from them, and they're just not marked as supercharge ramps. I'd love to know if there are more, but that is unclear at the moment.
So we're going to Nasty Nork. So we do finish same way that we do with any percent, where we stop or we finish on Flaming Nasty Nork. So we're going to basically do the same thing we do RTA, just a little faster. So quick thieves there, that's the same thing. Just little techniques that are a little too hard to do RTA. And then we're actually going to get ahead of Nasty Nork here. And he's kind of, I don't think he actually pushes you, but what your goal is with this is if you get too far ahead or behind of Nasty Nork, he actually slows down. So he's at his fastest when you're basically right in front of him. So we do that the entire way, and then we can flame him actually early, so you'll see that right here, and we'll get in front of him so he pushes us a little closer to the end section as well. And then we just take the rest of the platforms. I think there's a magic stairs, a couple of spots here, and flame them and it's over.
Yeah, some really cool magic stairs that just should not be possible, but barely are.
Those took a long time to figure out.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That.
So before we stop, I want to give a couple of quick thanks and also say something about the final time. First, I want to thank Nitrovsky for giving me a lot of advice on TASing this game in particular and also TASing in general. This is much, much better than it would have been just because of him. I want to thank Superdorn for being in my chat a lot and giving me a lot of great ideas. And so, the final time. By leaderboard timing, the final time is 21 minutes and 11 seconds. The old task that I made about 3 months ago or so, the final time of that was 22 minutes and 31 seconds. So I've saved 80 seconds over the old task. This is much better than that was. However, it's also worth considering that this was made on a PS1 emulator, which has standard disk speed load times, whereas the world record and really all of the top runs are on PS2 fast disk speed. So I recently went through the videos and compared the load times and found out that this task is losing about 66 seconds to Gazco's PS2 load times. And so if you take that into account, the adjusted final time for the task would really be like 20 minutes, 5 seconds, which is about 2.5 minutes faster than current world record.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit about, I guess, Spyro 1 tasking or Spyro tasking in general. It's, from what I've been hearing, there's a lot more people picking it up just to do little things. Shout outs to Shaw for tassing. Oh shoot, what level was it now?
Mystic Marsh.
Yes, Mystic Marsh. It's really, really awesome. He did 100% TAS of that. Nitroff is doing some any percent again. It's like 2015 all over again.
Super Dog, I know, started working on a 40 orb TAS. Really, if you want to get into tassing, just start with something. Don't expect yourself to be perfect. It can be intimidating at first, but once you really start learning it, it gets to be so much fun and so interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say.
Yeah,
You guys have anything else?
No.
I got nothing. That was really good and entertaining.
Cool, so it looks like up next is SRT 120% by Elk. Thank you, Spyrothon.